In 1992, a Chinese farmer decided to pump water out of a pond that had been in his village for as long as anyone could remember. As the water level dropped, something impossible appeared. Hand-carved stairs descending into darkness. Those stairs led to a massive underground chamber with 30-foot ceilings, precisely carved pillars, and walls covered in mysterious symbols. And here's the part that makes no sense. This wasn't a natural cave. Every single cubic meter of rock had been removed by hand, creating a cathedral-sized room deep underground. Then they found another chamber, and another. 24 enormous man-made caverns discovered so far, covering over 30,000 square meters, with an estimated 1 million cubic meters of rock excavated and removed. This is the Longyou caves in China, and there is absolutely no record of who built them, when they were built, or why. No historical texts mention them. No legends describe their construction. No artifacts clearly date them. It's as if someone carved out 1 million cubic meters of solid rock, created an underground city, and then erased every trace of the project from human memory. The Longyou caves are located in Zhejiang province in eastern China, near the small town of Shiyan. The region is known for its picturesque landscapes, rolling hills, and the Chu River that winds through the valley. For centuries, possibly millennia, local residents lived above these massive underground chambers without knowing they existed. The ponds that dotted the landscape were just considered natural water features, perhaps old quarries filled with water over time. Nobody suspected that beneath the water lay some of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries in Chinese history. When the first cave was discovered in 1992, local authorities were notified, and archaeologists arrived to investigate. What they found defied easy explanation. The chamber they entered was massive, roughly 100 feet long, 90 feet wide, and 30 feet high. The ceiling was supported by uniformly carved pillars, evenly spaced throughout the room. The walls showed clear chisel marks in a consistent 45-degree angle pattern that covered nearly every surface. The floor was relatively level, and the overall impression was of a deliberate, carefully planned construction project executed with remarkable consistency. But there were no inscriptions identifying the builders, no artifacts that could provide clear dating, no historical records acknowledging the cave's existence. This is extraordinary. China has one of the longest continuous written historical traditions in the world, with detailed records going back thousands of years. Imperial dynasties meticulously documented major construction projects. Yet these massive underground chambers, which would have required thousands of workers and years, or decades to complete, appear nowhere in historical texts. Over the next few years, more caves were discovered in the same area. By pumping out additional ponds, 24 chambers have been found so far, and geological surveys suggest there may be more still hidden. Each cave is unique in size and configuration, but all share certain characteristics. The distinctive 45-degree angle chisel marks on walls and ceilings, precisely carved pillars supporting the structures, and a complete absence of rubble or excavated material. That last point is crucial. When you excavate 1 million cubic meters of rock, you create 1 million cubic meters of debris. That's enough material to build a substantial mountain. Where did it go? If the caves were quarries, you'd expect the stone to be used for construction elsewhere, and you'd find buildings or structures made from the specific type of sandstone. Archaeological surveys have found no such structures in quantities that would account for the missing rock. It's as if the excavated material simply vanished. The chisel marks provide clues about construction methods. The consistent 45-degree angle across all the caves suggests a standardized technique, probably dictated by the efficiency of the tools and the angle at which workers could most effectively strike the stone. The uniformity implies organized labor following specific instructions, not random digging by uncoordinated groups. This was a planned project with quality control and standardized methods. The pillars are particularly intriguing. In several caves, massive pillars rise from floor to ceiling, carved from the native rock by excavating around them. These weren't added supports brought in later. They were left in place as the surrounding stone was removed. Calculating the structural load-bearing requirements and knowing where to leave pillars requires understanding of engineering and geology. The builders had to envision the final chamber before they began, planning pillar placement to ensure the ceiling wouldn't collapse during or after excavation. Some chambers are connected by narrow passages, suggesting the caves might have been part of a larger integrated complex. Were these meant to be storage facilities, underground refuges, religious temples, military installations? The lack of any identifying features makes it impossible to determine their purpose with certainty. There are no altars, no weapon caches, no grain storage systems, no clear indicators of function. The dating question is particularly frustrating. Without organic materials for radiocarbon dating or clear cultural artifacts, establishing when the caves were created is difficult. The chisel mark suggests metal tools, probably iron, which would place construction sometime after iron technology became widespread in China, roughly around 500 BCE or later. Some researchers have suggested the caves date to the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE, based on the level of organization and resources required, which would fit with a period of strong centralized imperial power. Others point to similarities with cave temples from the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE. However, there's a more radical possibility that some researchers have proposed. The caves might be much older than conventional estimates suggest, possibly dating back 2,000 years or more. Geological analysis of the weathering patterns, sediment accumulation, and mineral deposits in the caves could potentially provide clues, but such studies have been limited and their results remain debated. The mystery deepens when you consider precision of the construction. Modern engineers who examine the caves express amazement at the accuracy of the work. The floors are relatively level despite the irregular terrain above. The ceilings maintain consistent heights. The pillars are uniformly carved and evenly distributed. Achieving this level of precision while working underground, in darkness or limited light, using hand tools, represents a significant accomplishment. Lighting would have been a major challenge. Excavating underground requires illumination, but traditional torches and oil lamps consume oxygen, which becomes scarce in enclosed spaces. The builders would have needed ventilation systems to provide fresh air for both workers and lights. Some caves show evidence of ventilation shafts, but others don't have obvious air circulation features that have survived. Did they have sophisticated ventilation that we can't detect? Or did they work in short shifts, allowing the caves to air out between work periods? The workforce required would have been substantial. Estimates vary, but removing 1 million cubic meters of rock by hand, even with iron tools, would require thousands of workers laboring for years. Feeding, housing, and organizing such a workforce demands significant resources and administrative capability. This wasn't a small local project. This was an undertaking that required state-level organization and funding. Yet there's no record of it. How is this possible? Several theories attempt to explain the documentary silence. One possibility is that the records existed but were destroyed. China has experienced numerous periods of political upheaval, invasions, and deliberate destruction of historical records. The burning of books and suppression of historical texts during the Qin dynasty is well documented. Later periods saw libraries destroyed, archives lost to war and fire. Perhaps the Longyou caves were recorded in texts that no longer exist. Another theory suggests the caves were a secret project, deliberately kept out of official record for strategic or religious reasons. If they served as military installations or imperial treasuries, secrecy would be valuable. If they were associated with religious practices that later became taboo, records might have been intentionally suppressed. However, keeping a project involving thousands of workers secret for years seems improbable. Someone would have talked, and some reference would have survived in unofficial histories or local legends. The third possibility is the most unsettling. The caves predate organized historical record-keeping in the region, making them far older than current estimates suggest. If they were built before writing was widespread in this area, before the region was incorporated into centralized Chinese empires, there might simply be no contemporary records because none were created. This would push the cave's construction back substantially, possibly into Bronze Age or even earlier, which raises even more questions about who had the organization and technology to undertake such a project. Local legends offer little help. Unlike many archaeological mysteries where oral traditions preserve some memory of ancient constructions, the Longyou region has remarkably few legends about the caves. Elderly residents interviewed after the discovery expressed surprise. The pond had always been there, but nobody remembered stories about underground chambers or ancient construction projects. This absence of folklore is itself mysterious. Usually, impressive ancient sites generate legends even if the facts are forgotten. The Longyou caves seem to have been completely erased from cultural memory. The few symbols found carved in some caves have been analyzed but remain largely undeciphered. They don't match known Chinese characters or scripts. Some researchers claim to see similarities to ancient symbols or pictographs, but these interpretations are speculative. Without a clear context or comparable inscriptions, decoding these symbols is nearly impossible. Are they religious markings, ownership indicators, worker signatures, or decorative elements? We simply don't know. Modern study of the caves faces several challenges. The sites are now tourist attractions, which brings needed funding for preservation, but also creates conservation concerns. Increased humidity from visitor breathing, touching of surfaces, and general traffic wear down the ancient chisel marks and accelerate erosion. Some caves have been closed to the public to protect them, while others remain open with controlled access. The Chinese government has funded archaeological research, but the lack of conventional dating materials and artifacts makes progress slow. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed additional chambers still filled with water or sediment, but excavating these is expensive and risky. Each new discovery adds data but also raises new questions. Why are the caves clustered in this specific area? Are they connected underground in ways we haven't detected? What happened to the people who built them? One particularly intriguing feature is the presence of what appear to be deliberate artistic elements in some caves. Certain wall sections show more elaborate carving patterns, suggesting decoration rather than purely functional excavation. If the caves were simple quarries or storage facilities, why include artistic elements? This suggests the space has a cultural or ceremonial significance beyond mere utility. The structural engineering is impressive by any standard. The largest chambers have remained stable for potentially 2,000 years or more without modern reinforcement. The builders clearly understood load distribution, ceiling thickness requirements, and the properties of the local sandstone. They knew how thick walls needed to be to support the weight above, where to place supporting pillars, and how to excavate without creating structural weaknesses that would lead to collapse. Modern attempts to explain the construction process involve creating computer models of the excavation sequence. These models suggest the builders worked from the top down, starting with shafts from the surface and gradually expanding them into chambers. This would provide ventilation and allow removal of excavated material through the shafts. However, this is speculation. The actual construction sequence might have been completely different. The temperature and humidity inside the caves remain remarkably constant year-round, creating a stable environment that would have been valuable for storage of perishable goods or other materials requiring controlled conditions. Was this a consideration in their design, or a fortunate side effect of underground construction? If they were used for storage, what was stored there, and why remove every trace of it before abandonment? The abandonment itself is mysterious. Why excavate these massive chambers and then apparently never use them, or use them briefly and then abandon them? If they serve an important function, why not maintain them? If they became obsolete, why not repurpose them? Underground chambers are valuable resources. They provide shelter, storage, strategic advantages. Yet these caves seem to have been abandoned and forgotten. Some researchers have drawn comparisons to other mysterious cave systems around the world, suggesting the Longyou caves might be part of a broader but poorly understood tradition of ancient underground construction. However, most comparable sites have at least some historical documentation or clear cultural context. The Longyou caves remain uniquely enigmatic in their complete absence from the historical record. Recent technological advances offer hope for new discoveries. Three-dimensional laser scanning creates precise digital models of the caves, allowing detailed analysis of construction techniques and patterns that might not be visible to casual observation. Chemical analysis of the chisel marks might reveal information about the metal tools used, potentially helping narrow the dating. Genetic analysis of any organic residues found in the caves could provide clues about the people who worked there. But until a major discovery provides new evidence, perhaps a sealed chamber with clear artifacts or a contemporary text that mentions the caves, or advanced dating techniques that definitively establish their age. The Longyou caves will remain one of archaeology's most frustrating mysteries. Here we have a massive construction project, evidence of significant engineering capability and social organization, representing thousands of hours of human labor, and we know almost nothing about it. Standing inside one of these chambers today, looking up at the 30-foot ceiling supported by precisely carved pillars, running your hand over the methodical 45-degree chisel marks that cover the walls, you're confronted with an uncomfortable reality. Entire chapters of human history can be lost. Not just details, but whole monumental achievements can vanish so completely that later generations don't even know they existed. The Longyou caves prove that absence of evidence in historical records doesn't mean absence of capability. Ancient people accomplished extraordinary things that left no written trace, either because the records were never made, or because they were lost, or because they were deliberately destroyed. How many other achievements lie hidden, waiting to be discovered? How much of the past is still unknown, buried literally or figuratively, ready to surprise us when we stumble upon it? These caves whisper a humbling message. We don't know as much as we think we do about ancient civilizations and their capabilities. Every new discovery has the potential to rewrite our understanding, to reveal that people thousands of years ago were more sophisticated, more organized, more capable than conventional history acknowledges. The Longyou caves are a monument to unknown hands, unknown purposes, an enduring mystery of human ambition carved into solid rock and then somehow erased from memory.